Hello, welcome to the Formula Racing League. This is the pre-season races here at Monza as we prepare for the fourth season of this F2 campaign. Alongside me in the commentary box, known as Rosie RR when she competes in F2. Good evening, Rosie. Now, we've got a couple of races lined up this evening. I mean, it's the usual sort of format of a one-shot qualifying, a 50% race distance feature race, and a 50% distance sprint. And it's news coming out saying that Tier 1 and Tier 2 will become just a single tier for this season coming up. We've got 6 rounds that are lined up for the last season of F2 before we move to the F1 2021 game in August. And in regards to F2 this evening, what are you looking out for? Just watching Statistic King on the stream, he won last season's, I can't remember if it was Tier 1 or Tier 2 that he had won, but he definitely won either of the two tiers. He's a quick driver in this. So he's just making his way through the Rettifilio chicane and then through the, what I believe is called the Curva Grande, and then the Rettifilio. At the moment, we've only got 12 drivers competing in tonight's event. This is a pre-season race after all, so there's no points on offer, but it's a good opportunity for those who may be not as familiar with the championship or with the cars itself to actually gain some experience before they do go racing for real from next week. So Statistic King just going through Ascari. It's been a rather clean, tidy lap so far. He is currently 7th. Don't forget, all the drivers are setting their lap times at exactly the same time as Statistic King is, hence why you can see him as 7th fastest. Wild Dog not completing his lap, he'll start at the back for the feature race. For Statistic King, he's coming through the last turn to complete his lap, and he'll line up, I would like to think, 7th on the grid for the race. Yeah, Niffy was also disqualified from that session, as was Rune and Wild Dog, but Dixon was fastest by half a second over Novaves in second place. Lucky Boff was third in the UNI Virtuosi, followed by Podge. Scouse Cookie was fifth ahead of Vintage, then Statistic King, Scott, and Mielios, who are the rest of those that completed the lap time. Rune will start 10th, Niffy 11th, and Wild Dog in 12th. And we've just seen notification from my stream, Rosie, that it's expected to be a wet feature race, according to Dixon, who's put his car on pole. And Dixon's saying he's putting his car on a dry setup as well, so that may hinder him in the race. But we'll wait and see. There are only 12 drivers involved, so if we do get a safety car period, there's still every chance of those who fall to the back of the field to catch back up again. Now, competing in an F2 car is hard enough, but when you do it in the rain, it makes it even harder. 30 seconds away from the start of the formation lap, all the drivers will start on the wet tyres. There's no intermediate compound in F2. It's either wets or slicks, and it's a no-brainer which tyre compound the drivers will be starting on, as they'll be thinking about when they'll be pitting in when the race does get underway. So just a few seconds before the formation lap begins, an opportunity for the drivers to acclimatise to the conditions on those wet weather tyres. A 15-lap feature race lines up for these guys. They do have to take a mandatory pit stop, even in the wet conditions. Now, with it being a 50% feature race, they have to take their mandatory stop from lap 3 onwards. They can't take it on laps 1 or 2. It has to be from lap 3, which is half the distance to what it would be normally in real life Formula 2. So in these conditions, Rosie, what are you looking out for in this one? We've got Dixon, who's expected to start in the dry setup, which is not ideal, but from what I've seen from him in a lot of other series, not just in F2 but in F1 as well, he could well be one of the favourites to take the victory here. And I'm not sure what the weather is expected for the sprint race later, but at the end of the day, as I've already mentioned, there are no points on offer. It's just an opportunity for the drivers to acclimatise to the circuit. So Dixon on pole ahead of Novovitz. Now, because of the game itself, there is no drivers who are on more fuel than others. It is a very default system when it comes to fuel loads in these F2 cars. Of course, it's an all-spec series. Let's not forget that. So it doesn't matter which team you are racing for in this game. It's more about capability and driver skill and talent. That is for sure. Dixon coming towards the Parabolica, giving those tyres and brakes a little bit more. There's a Prema going off in the background. That's probably Wild Dog, who's just... So Wild Dog just pushed... Yeah, and Novovitz almost doing the same on the exit of the Parabolica. So Dixon will take up his position on the starting grid. There's already 2 drivers there. Lucky Boff and Melio's probably collided with another driver during that formation, hence why they are sat on the grid. They're probably going to be soaking wet a little bit more the longer they are sat there stationary. As you can see, Dixon taking up his spot on the grid in the ART with Novovitz in the HWA alongside. There's Lucky Boff in the Virtuosi alongside Podge in the Carlin. Scouse Cookies in the Dams, Vintage in an ART, Statistic King in the High-Tech. But the cars are on the grid there. Dixon awaits for those 5 red lights, as do the other drivers when they go out. We'll be racing here at Monza in the wet. It's lights out and away we go. Dixon gets off the line well, and it's a good getaway from Podge from 4th on the grid. He's already made his way past the UNI Virtuosi of Lucky Boff into 3rd place. So Dixon stays in the lead ahead of Novovitz as they come into the Rettifiglio for the first time. And then there's a tag from behind by the... Yeah, big contact there involving both of the Dams drivers and the Carlin of Podge, who spins round the wrong way. But nothing has affected the top 2 at the moment. Well, I say the top 2. It hasn't affected Dixon because he's in the lead with Scouse Cookie in 2nd place. Rune is 3rd with Lucky Boff 4th and Scott in 5th place. Yeah, Podge not having the best of starts. He's got no damage to his front wing, so at least that's some consolation for him. You do lose a lot of time being stuck in the pits when you're making an extra pit stop. It's a nightmare if you're in an F2 car, so it's very, very paramount that you keep your car clean throughout the race, really, so that you don't fall out of sync with the rest of the field. So Dixon coming into Ascari, still in the lead with the Dams of Scouse Cookie and Rune following behind. Lucky Boff is in 4th, and Vintage is in 5th place, ahead of Scott in the Carlin. You can just see Dixon continuing to warm his tyres up, actually. He's got 4.5 seconds already on the rest of the field, so he's already taken the opportunity to try and warm those tyres up. There's a spinner at the back. It's Statistic King who has had a moment. He's at the back of the field. Yeah, and Scouse Cookie in the pits for a new front wing. So Novovitz has lost. Yeah, Novovitz has lost it on the exit Parabolica. Scouse Cookie in the pits. I don't know if the penalty system is applied in this pre-season race, but either way, Scouse Cookie's got damage to his front wing, and so he'll fall to the back of the field. Just see Wild Dog going across the Rettifiglio chicane, and surely he'll have to get that position up to the High-Tech of Statistic King, who goes past, or is that Vintage actually is going through? No, it's Yeah, it's Statistic King that's gone past, and the leaderboard is glitching at the moment, so what you are seeing is not the correct race order. So just wait for the leaderboard to update itself. We can see Vintage is up to 3rd place now, with Skowsuki in the pits to change tyres. Scott is in 4th, with Wild Dog in 5th, Nivy in 6th, and Lucky Boff in 7th place, with Podge and Novavest fighting over that 8th place, and Novavest goes through. So Dick. Yeah, Novavest has to back off at this occasion. He doesn't have the high ground into Ascari. Podge puts his Carlin up into 8th place again. Lucky Boff is next up. But Dixon's lead, 10 seconds already as he ends the 2nd lap. Yep. So Rune, he'll be under threat actually from Vintage, who we know is very, very quick in these cars. Novavest getting back ahead of Podge as well on the exit of Scurry, and someone else is in the pits. That will be Lucky Boff, who's picked up a time. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, to be honest with you. He must have picked up damage, actually. Yeah, he's picked up damage after contact with someone, that hence why he's come into the pits. I'm surprised he actually didn't just go on for another lap, because had he gone for another lap, he would have used that stop as his mandatory pit stop. And someone else has spun. Someone else has spun on the exit of the Rettifilia. That'll be Milios in the Prema. He's got going again. Now, has he got damage to his front wing? Probably doesn't have so, but he's continued on anyhow. So Vintage closing in on Rune. The gap 0.6 of a second. It's coming down all the time though, and Vintage will use the slipstream. There's no DRS in the wet conditions, so it's very much the old-fashioned way of overtaking from these drivers. Novavest getting past Nivy to go up into 6th place. There's Wild Dog hounding Scott. So even though there may not be that many cars competing, we're still seeing some great battles out there. Dixon posting a new fastest lap, 1 minute 39.1, as Vintage closes in on Rune in the battle for 2nd place, just waiting for the best time to get the power down. It's very easy to spin up the tyres and lose control. You can see Wild Dog all over the back of Scott now as they go down the start-finish straight towards the Rettifilia. He will break the later of the two. Yeah, Wild Dog goes for it, breaks that later than the Carlin, and he goes through and up into 4th position. Nice move there. Dixon 14 seconds clear. It's almost like 3 to 4 seconds he's pulling out on everyone else, but he is highly experienced in these cars on F1 2020, whether it's in a Formula 1 car or a Formula 2 car. It's a question to say whether he'll maintain that form by the time the Formula Racing League does move over to F1 2021. And Nivy getting a time penalty. He has, and Novavest is flying in these conditions actually. I was just going to say Nivy's picked up a time penalty for track limits, so that will go to his time at the end of the race. And Wild Dog getting out of shape there. I'm not sure what's happened to him. Has he made a has he picked up damage of some sort? Oh, there's a touch there. Novavest just moved across on him a bit too much. That sent Vest into the wall. I think Podge has done the same actually. He got out of shape on the exit of Lesmo, and he's fallen down to 9th position. So here's Vintage closing in on Rune as Podge gets a time penalty for track limits as well. You can tell he's just getting a bit frustrated now, if not very, as Vintage continues to close in on Rune, as Novavest has less than 4 seconds to make up on those guys in front, as Scott and Wild Dog go head to head. And Wild Dog getting out of shape. He didn't take the best line into the rest of the video the best way, which decided Scott to loom in behind. Yeah, Vintage has spun into the gravel. He's clearly hit a big patch of water at the Curva Grande, and he'll fall down the order with Statistic King about to go past him. Yeah, it's a bad error that from Vintage, closing in on Rune at the time, and his mistake has dropped into 8th. Scott looking to get past Wild Dog again. He's moved off position thanks to Vintage's mistake. He's fallen down to 10th place, actually, he's Vintage. And he's spun again, look. So Vintage just spun again at the De La Rocha chicane. Has he got damage to his front wing? Yeah, that won't do those tyres any good, really, with the way he's spinning those up. Dixon now 19 seconds clear of everyone else as he ends lap 5. Will this be a new fastest lap? The answer is yes. It's a 1 minute 38.9. So Dixon just finding time anywhere he can. Well, it's down to everyone else to make up that ground on Dixon. Dixon is just as good of a driver in the wet as he is. But I'm sure there'll be some contenders in the Formula Racing League that love to give the F2 season a go. It is a different kettle of fish to drive in comparison to the Formula 1 cars. There's no ERS system involved. The tyres don't have, blankets. They're not in tyre blankets. It's very much down to the driver to generate some heat into their brakes and tyres when it comes to F2. And of course, there's no intermediate compound in these F2 cars. It's either the wets or the slicks. And with the way this race is going, it is expected to be a full wet race, and we don't expect the conditions to change anytime soon. So Nova versus... Oh! He has! Dixon spun. Yeah, Dixon has spun on the exit of Ascari. Well, we were saying about how dominant Dixon was doing, and if you make mistakes like that, that could come back to haunt you. Now, he's got a huge margin over everyone else, so I'm sure he'll be absolutely fine. But he won't want to be doing too many mistakes like that, as Novavest picks up a time penalty for exceeding track limits too many times. But he won't be thinking about that at the moment as he tries to get past Rune for second. And Nova getting better drive coming out of the Parabolica to pull alongside Rune to cross the start-finish line. The damage driver's still marginally ahead, but Nova's going to have the inside line when they get down to turn 1, and this should see Novavest through and up into P2. Here he goes, to the inside, runs Rune as far out as he can legally, and the HWA goes through and up to second. Oh, and Rune gets back past him, so well spotted there, Rosie. And the HWA got onto the grass, and Rune got back through. Podge gets a time penalty for speeding in the pits, and I don't know if he'll be... No, I didn't think he would carry on, to be honest with you. He's out of the race, and so I was just going to say, the top 8 results for this get reversed for the sprint race. So I was just thinking, if we get less than 8 finishes, how would that affect the I mean, yeah, to the inside he goes into Ascari, and Novavest gets back through up to second place. Does he? No. Rune has better drive on the exit of turn 8. Novavest doesn't want to be going out too wide, though, because you can easily get a warning for track limits. It's normally 3 warnings, and then you get the penalty, which is illustrated by Scouse Cookie, who has picked up at least 3 warnings in this race, which is enough to get in that penalty. Dixon posting a new fastest lap. And Rune just way too quick. Yeah, he was at least 20 kilometres, in fact, no, 40 kilometres over the pit lane speed limit. It's a 60 km/h pit lane speed limit in these F2 cars. Personally, I think it should be higher than that. But it is what it is here at Monza, and Rune change into another set of the wet compound tyres. Now, can he get that car out before that Prema comes down? The answer is yes. So there was just a little glitch actually when it was stuck in the box, but he's out ahead of that Prema who was coming down the pit lane. Now, what will Dixon and Novavest do? I mean, Novavest, you'd think, will need to be coming in, because once Room gets his tyres up to temperature, Nova will need to come in to cover off that dams. So Vintage coming into the... was just pitted for a change of tyres, completing this mandatory stop, and he's on his way again. Dixon... no, he stays on for another lap, does Dixon. And it wasn't a fastest lap that time, but it was a 1 minute 38.7, which was very close to being the fastest lap. Now, will Novavest decide to pit in? The answer is yes, but he needs to make sure he gets the car slowed down to 60 kilometers an hour, and he does so this time. So, at least he won't be taking that penalty. Just looking at Scott, who's coming through in the Carlin. And he carries on for another lap, as does Statistics. So, those two going on a longer first stint on their wets. As Novavest ruins a long way back, actually. I think Novavest has got this one, to be honest with you. He'll be behind the Prema of Mielio's, but he's yet to stop. Rune is crossing over the start-finish line right now, but Novavest is already on the circuit, and he keeps hold of what is effectively second place. And Sister King has just got by Scott for second position now as well. So he's making a good recovery drive, and I'd like to think he'll be pitting in at the end of this lap. But here's Dixon, who's 29.5 seconds clear of Statistic King as he prepares for his mandatory stop. We are now on lap 9 out of 15. Dixon coming into the Parabolica now, and sooner or later he'll make his way into the pit lane to get the car slowed down to within 60 kilometers an hour. The answer is yes, does so comfortably. And with the field so far behind, yeah. Now, was there damage for Scouts? I'm not even sure the damage mod is on this lobby. This is a pre-season race after all, so it's a chance for the drivers to actually acclimatise to the machine. But Dixon's out on his way again. Statistic King going way too quick and getting a penalty for it. Scott slows his car down in time. He does not get a penalty for that. Novavest is coming down the start-finish straight, but Dixon is already coming towards turn 1 and keeps hold of his advantage over everyone else. Here's Rune, he'll go back up to third. And Statistic King will rejoin ahead of the dams of Scouse Cookie, who is just coming through the Parabolic. And now we've got someone else who's spun. It's Vintage. He continues on his way. Yeah, I suppose with it, because it's like a practice session, I suppose. And normally when it comes to practice sessions before F1 events for the Formula Racing League on a Tuesday night, they would normally turn the damage mod off, so that you don't have drivers retiring out on circuit because they make a mistake. The only change on there would be for Scott to finish ahead of Statistic King as it stands, and for Wild Dog, actually Wild Dog would finish. Oh no, Wild Dog would finish behind Scouse Cookie still. I was just looking at Emilio's and Nivi. I think that's actually the only change. So I was right after all with what I was trying to say, that the change between Statistic King and Scott would change. Although having said that, Statistic King has opened up a 5-second margin on Scott. So the top 10 or all the finishes would be the same, even with the time penalties applied. So with 5 laps to go, Dixon 11 seconds clear of Novaves in second. Rune is third, Statistic King fourth, Scott fifth, Scouse Cookie sixth, Wild Dog seventh, Emilio's in eighth, and would take reverse grid pole for the sprint race shortly after this. I'm just thinking as well, if Nivi can get to within 1 second of Mielio's, he'd go ahead of him, and he would be on reverse grid pole. But he's already... How far is he behind? He's 7.2 seconds behind. It's difficult to compare the gaps, or compare the times when they go through sectors. But I think Mielio's is going quicker than Nivi right now, so I think it's going to be too difficult for Nivi to get back through. We've just seen Wild Dog closing on Scouse Cookie. Now remember, Scouse Cookie is on the oldest tyres out of everyone out on circuit. He's been out on the full wets for 8 laps now. This is the 9th lap he's been on those for. Wild Dog's tyres are 6 laps younger. It's already going side by side with it. Oh, he had to back out of it in the last moment before they get to Ascari. We've just seen that Novaves has posted a new fastest lap, so he's clearly finding some time on those full wets. Wild Dog looking to get past the dams very, very soon. And if he is going to get past him and keep hold of that position, he needs to open up a 2-second gap on him in order to keep hold of 6th place. Goes for it in Parabolica. Backed out of it in the last moment. But if he gets good drive coming off the Parabolica, he may be able to get into this slipstream and have another go down into turn 1. Novaves getting another time penalty as well, but that won't affect his race finishing position. Wild Dog going to the inside of Scouse Cookie into turn 1. Ooh, he cut the corner there and wisely let Scouse Cookie back through. But he's got a time penalty for riding over the curb. I know that's just unlucky, isn't it? This is the annoying part about how track limit penalties are given out to drivers. Hopefully Codemasters will have revised that for the 2021 game, which apparently there's a beta version being released, which someone who I know or seen on my friends list has had a play on. Have you seen the game itself? Yeah. Should be different as well. We were talking about the damage mod as well. And have you seen how the damage mod, or like new ways they've sorted out how a car can be damaged? Well, not just the front wings and obviously damage to the suspension, but also it's like the barge boards and the I can't remember if it's wing mirrors or it's barge boards and the floor actually, which if you get damage off them, you have to live with that damage for the rest of the race or the rest of the session. So that's how paramount it is. So Dixon, look. Yeah, he may have gone across the escape road actually before he joined. He was 6 seconds behind Statistic. He's now 13 seconds off him. I think he took the escape road down at turn 1 and then continued. Novaves getting another time penalty of 3 seconds. That still won't affect his race finishing position. He has got a 14-second margin over Rune, but Rune's got a 5-second time penalty that'll be applied to his race finishing position as well. Well, you say that at the moment, I can just see Wild Dog's time penalty is less than Mielio's. So, in actual fact, it'd be the other way around. Mielio's would be on reverse grid pole, and Wild Dog would be second on the grid should he finish 7th. Yeah. So Mielio's going to the inside of Scouse Cookie as they enter the Parabolica. And I think there's going to be a change of position here. Mielio's goes through up to 6th place on the road. He won't keep that position though, because Scouse Cookie's time penalty is 9 seconds less than the Prema. So Mielio's, if he can actually pull out a 4-second margin on his teammate, that could be enough to see him finish 7th. There's no way he'll keep hold of 6th. So Dixon coming towards the Parabolica now to start his final lap of this feature race. And apart from that mistake, it's just been pretty much plain sailing for Dixon. Perhaps it was a blessing for him that he made up that gap on everyone else. Otherwise, he could have been fighting for a race-winning position at the end with Novus, who's in 2nd. With that 9-second time penalty, that may have come to Dixon's rescue. Mielio's has now passed Scott at Lesmo. Yeah, he did it into the second part of Lesmo to put his Prema up to 5th position. But will Scott fight back? Well, Scott's not got a time penalty of his own, so he would still finish ahead of Mielio's. But Mielio's time penalty gets worse now. He's got another 3 seconds, which makes it 15 seconds. So Dixon coming through into Ascari for the last time. He's not picked up a penalty in this race either, so it's just been keeping the car on the racetrack, not being involved in any scraps further behind. Wild Dog getting ahead of Scouse Cookie on the road. We're hoping to open up a 2-second gap on him to keep hold of that position. But here's Dixon coming through the Parabolica now. And he's going to take this feature race pre-season victory at Monza. Dixon showing his class in the wet. He takes the victory at Monza. Novus will come home in 2nd place. Even with that 9-second time penalty, P2 will not be taken away from him, which means he'll start 7th. Yeah, yeah, we do see some drivers doing that when they cross over the line. But luckily enough, the AI does control them when they do go past the finish line. Rune will bring the Dams home in 3rd place. And then not too far behind him will be Statistic King in 4th. And Rune does go past the HWA, luckily does not collide with it. And Statistic King will cross home, will come home in 4th. Now Mielio's time penalty will drop him to 8th at the finish. Trying to pull out as much of a gap as he can, but don't think it's going to be enough. Scott will go back ahead of him into 5th. Wild Dog and Scouse Cookie will get back ahead of Mielio's. Or with Wild Dog's time penalty actually, seen him behind Mielio's. So Mielio's only 7th, with Wild Dog 8th, Navy will be 9th, and Vintage in 10th. So the drivers out on the podium, even in the wet, and even though it's a pre-season race, it's still nice to see these guys on top of the podium. And we've still got another sprint race to come. In the meantime, they get even wetter out there on the podium, the champagne. Now notice that some drivers, like Liam Lawson or Yuri Vips, I think it may have been Yuri Vips actually, in Baku earlier this season, where he won the second sprint race, but couldn't afford to get his race suit drenched by the champagne. He needed to save that for the feature race in case he actually got onto the podium, which he did so. Anyway, your race result for the feature race here. Dixon, your race winner. It's Novavest second. It's Room third. Statistic King fourth. Scott fifth. Scouse Cookie in sixth. Ahead of Mielios and Wild Dog, who will start on reverse grid pole for the sprint race. Nivu ninth. Vintage 10th. Podge and Lucky Boff did not finish. Yeah, and it's a good lap as well from Dixon, the 1 minute 37.3. I mean, Novavest, we thought maybe just sneak those points, but in the end, they went to Dixon, who won by a very comfortable margin. It was 11.5 seconds on the road, but Novavest's time penalty had increased it to 20.5. But we've still got the sprint race to come, and it's expected to be dry for this one, so it'll be a fairly different race for the drivers. What do you expect to see differently here in comparison to the feature race? Now, with it being a sprint race, there's no mandatory pit stop involved, but we do expect drivers to be starting on the harder compounds. I can't quite remember what the compounds are, the dry compounds for Monza in F2. We'll find out in a moment. I think the medium tyre is... Yeah, so it's the mediums of which the drivers will be using. Of course, there are the soft compound available should they need them. I think if they do get a safety car though, then those at the back of the field will consider doing something different and going on to a soft compound, which could see them fight towards the front. But this is an opportunity for Dixon to actually show that he's not just a driver who does well over the course of a single lap or dominating from the beginning. It's how he can do in a sprint race in terms of racecraft and overtaking drivers. Yeah, it's a very nice one, isn't it? And of course, the Belgian side doing remarkably well in the European Championships across Europe. Oh, I've just seen the... Yeah, way too quick there. Luckily, he didn't make contact with any other driver. He's stuck in the gravel trap at the moment. He's reversing back onto the racetrack. Lets the ART go past. Won't affect his race start position. I'm sure he won't want to be doing that too many times. But back to what I was saying, Belgium doing remarkably well in the Euros, with them winning all 3 group games. Now it's down to the knockout stage where the real business of the tournament begins. In the meantime, in F2, we've got 2 Belgian drivers in the Premers looking to convert their start positions into the sprint race victory to close this pre-season evening before the championship gets underway in a week's time in Barcelona. So Podge, whose car is being controlled by the AI at the moment, takes up his position on the grid. And then we wait for the 5 red lights to come on for one last time here at Monza. And then we will begin. So Wild Dog waits impatiently for the 5 red lights to come on, which they do now. It's lights out and away we go. And what a brilliant getaway from Scott from 4th on the grid. He's alongside the Prema of Melios, and he could get alongside the Dams of Scouse Cookie into turn 1, but Wild Dog stays in the lead through all that, and Scott finding his way up to 2nd place, makes contact with the Dams of Scouse Cookie. Melios over the curb, getting past Scouse Cookie, but they're going side by side, exiting there, and Scouse Cookie gets back ahead of him again. So it's Wild Dogs in the lead with 2nd, Scouse Cookie 3rd, Melios 4th, Rune, Dixon, Statistic King, Novaves, your top 8. We saw Lucky Boff actually resetting the car back onto the track, which you're not allowed to do in the Formula Racing League. For pre-season races, it's not as much of a problem, but he needs to learn to not actually use that when he's basically off track or pointing the wrong way or something. So we just see a battle for 4th position between the 2 Dams drivers and the ART of Dixon. Dixon going to the grass, can't make the move stick, and so he has to wait behind these guys. So Melios coming to the inside of Scott as they go into the Parabolica, and Melios braking later than the Carling. Keeps the car on the track and goes up to 2nd place again. Yeah, I was just going to say Melios is changing direction more than once, which you're not supposed to do when defending your position on the straight. You're not supposed to make more than one change of direction before the braking zone. You can see Vintage in the pits for ART. He's clearly picked up damage. Don't know if he'll choose to carry on. He probably will do. The leaderboard, I don't know if the leaderboard's glitching at the moment. What you're seeing is not, yeah, it's not the correct leaderboard. Hopefully that's something that Codemasters will be looking to fix in time for F1 2021. But Wild Dog still in the lead, with Melios 2nd and Scott 3rd, who's right behind. There's no DRS for the first 2 laps of the race. It'll come on lap 3, which we could see a lot more overtaken the next time these drivers do use the DRS, as Scott gets into the slipstream of the Prema of Melios, going side by side, almost into the Ascari chicane. Scott backs out of it, but Dixon going round the outside of Scouse Cookie to go up into 4th position. Nice move there from Dixon. Just seen a few drivers actually going wide on the exit of Ascari. Got to be careful not to exceed track limits too many times, as it looks as though they were taking more track than they should. Melios having to defend 2nd place from Scott again. Shutting the door on Scott, losing some of the momentum. Yeah, oh, there's contact! Yeah, Lucky spins. Now I wonder, with the debris on track, is that going to be enough to deploy the virtual safety car? It is on not quite on the racing line, but still not ideal for the drivers. Lucky Boff will be back in the pits, probably to retire actually as well, because he's going to be so far behind, unless he's prepared to maybe just try and go for the fastest lap. No, he's retired. Yeah, I was just going to say, it was on the... Yeah, it could have been worth... So Dixon in 3rd place now. He's ahead of Scott. He's now within DRS range to have a go on Melios, who will also have DRS off Lesmo, but Dixon got a better exit, a much better exit than the Prema. DRS open on the ART, and he's going to go through up to 2nd place behind race leader Wild Dog. And Nivi getting past Rune round the outside into Ascari to go up into 8th place. Dixon all over the back of the 2nd Prema now of Wild Dog. Melios waiting for the opportunity as well. Melios going to the inside into Parabolica. And are the drivers going to go side by side down the start-finish straight? This could be going back to the days of I think the 70s actually. I think they had like 5 drivers like having a drag race to the finish line all those years back. Trying to remember the names of those. But either way, Dixon going to the inside as they enter the Rettifilio, and that'll be him going up into P1. There's a bit of contact, but Dixon was entitled to take the line as he did, and goes up into the lead. Melios also getting past his teammates. So Wild Dog down to 3rd place. And now we've got the... Yeah, Nova Vest right behind in the HWA, looking to get past as well. But there's not enough room for him to pull alongside. He's watching the Primers go head-to-head. Wild Dog will get a warning, actually, for cutting that De La Rocha chicane. And he gets through on the inside of Milios in the first part of Lesmo. Nova Vest taking advantage of the open door as he looks to get past down the inside into the second part of Lesmo. And Nova Vest get up into 3rd position. And we are on lap 4 as well. Nova Vest will get into the slipstream of Wild Dog as they come up to the Parabolica again. Nova Vest will go to the inside, I would imagine, or is he going to sit behind and wait for the DRS to come round on the start-finish straight? So they come past the pit lane entry. Over the line, DRS open, and Nova Vest will surely make mincemeat of Wild Dog to go up into P2. And he does so into turn 1. Or does Wild Dog fight back? Wild Dog fights back for all he can, but Nova Vest had the high ground to keep hold of 2nd place. Although he got bad drive off the exit, and Wild Dog is back through again. Nova Vest going to the inside of the Primer as they enter the De La Rocha chicane. Oh, they make contact. Nova Vest cuts the chicane and gets a time penalty for it. That's not... Oh, and Milios is in the barrier. Milios made contact, I think, with Nova Vest. He's hit the barrier and he's damaged his front wing. And Nova Vest in DRS territory again. Can he go to the inside of Wild Dog? The answer is no on this occasion. But Wild Dog got... Yeah, completing the switch up. There's a bit of contact there again. Scott takes advantage of Wild Dog's error. And we could see him up to 2nd place, actually, as he goes side by side with Nova Vest. Nova Vest needs to be careful not to turn in on him before they get to the Parabolica. Scott goes almost to the outside. Nova Vest is through again. Oh, he got bad drive coming off the Parabolica, though, did Nova Vest, as they go... I was almost say side by side, but Scott's not quite alongside the HWA yet. The DRS is open. Scott going to the outside, and that's the Carlin up to 2nd place now. But Nova Vest still alongside, defending for all he can, actually, is Nova Vest. So this is great defensive driving, actually, and this is something he can learn from going forward for when the season does begin in Barcelona next week. Milios getting past Rune again into 7th position, even with that damaged front wing. So Nova Vest has just pulled out a margin actually now from Wild Dog because he was tussling with Scott at the De La Rocha chicane. They've lost crucial ground and now Scott's about to lose another position this time to King. So from challenging 2nd place, Scott is down to 6th. King going to the outside, as is Scott. Scott nearly to... Oh, there's contact! King and Scott come together, and that's going to allow the dams through again. So Scott and King make contact at the Parabolica. And Scott tried his best efforts to avoid the contact, but couldn't quite do so. And Scouse Cookie back into 4th place again. Emilio's going to the inside of Nivi into turn 1. And just about getting the car slow down in time. Keeps hold of 7th position. Looking at the penalties at the moment, though, there are 4 drivers with 3-second time penalties. They are Nova Vest, Scouse Cookie, Emilio's, and Vintage. Now, Nova Vest's time penalty would not drop him to 3rd place. Scouse Cookie would fall behind, both Statistics King and Scott, so he needs to try and pull out a 3-second gap on them in the remaining laps. Melio's likewise with Nivi and Rune. And Rune getting past Nivi actually now into 8th place. And Dixon with a new... Yeah. He's pulling out all the stops actually. He's Dixon, even at this stage. Novavest picked up another 3 seconds worth of time penalty. Now that would drop him behind Wild Dog, but the gap is now 5.1. So if Novavest in the final 4 laps can open up a 6-second lead, that would be enough for him to keep hold of second. Can't seem to see any other drivers battling for position. Now Vintage on the fresher tyres is about to overtake Podge, whose car is being controlled by the AI, so Vintage will easily go up into 10th position. There is Dixon out in the lead. And now Novavest has now opened up that 6-second margin on Wild Dog. He won't catch Dixon. I'm sure he'll look back on this race and think he's most certainly a contender for challenging for victories and potentially the championship as well. Dixon's showing the pace that we all thought he would do. It's just a matter of can he keep it that way. And South Cookie going into the gravel by the looks of things, or going wide. Yeah, and it's happened to me as well. And Scouse Cookie drops down to 5th place behind Statistic King. Now Scott fancies a go of getting past him. And there's those 3 other drivers behind waiting to pounce as well. So Scott won't want to make too many mistakes here. Yeah, maybe you've gone a bit too wide, to be honest with you. It wouldn't be at all surprised if he got a warning for that. Scott. Rear wing open. Pulls alongside the dams, and that should be the Carlin going up to 5th place. But Scouse Cookie was able to fend him off on this occasion. So Dixon's lead still 6.5 seconds. Novavest finding some good time at the moment, actually. And Melio's getting another... Oh, he spun again. Oh, he hit the grass as well. That'll be him losing the position to Nivi as he goes past. So Melio's race going from bad to worse. And Scott right behind the dams of Scouse Cookie as he tries to get past. Coming into Ascari now. Scouse Cookie continuing to have internet issues. He keeps all the position that he has. Emilio's looking to get past the high-tech of Nivi. Drivers are on the penultimate lap now of this sprint race. Emilio's going to the outside, over the curb. I can imagine he'll have been given a warning for that. Novavest getting another time penalty. That would still not affect his finishing position. 6.1 seconds, he's got the gap down now to Dixon. Emilio's getting back through on Nivi for 7th place, and Rune looking to take advantage of the open door. And he goes up to 8th place, does the Damage driver. Yeah, he got him back on the switchback towards the second part of Les Mo. Scouse Cookie and Scott still tossing amongst each other and closing in on Statistic King with the DRS. And now Dixon is about to start his final lap of this race. And Nivi's got back through on Rune again as they go into Ascari. 6.1 seconds is still the gap. Novaves continuing to narrow down the gap. His margin over Wild Dog, 12 seconds. So if Novaves was to get another time penalty of 3 seconds, that still wouldn't affect his race finishing position. That just tells you everything about Novaves's pace in this pre-season event. And plenty of food for thought for these drivers for when they do race for real in 7 days' time. There's that Vintage who's had a bit of an excursion somewhere. Couldn't quite tell. He's on his way again. And Rune and Nivi still battling over the final points pay position on the road. They'll go up to 7th and 8th because of, well, I say that, Rune's been given a time penalty for exceeding track limits too many times now, although he would still go ahead of Melios, whose time penalty is worth more than these two. But we'll go back to Dixon, who's coming into the Parabolica now. Won the feature race earlier on, and this is going to be sprint race victory as well for the Englishman. Dixon crosses the line to win the sprint race here at Monza. Excellent drive from him, some brilliant passing through the field. Novaves finishes second and gets the fastest up of the race. Excellent effort from the HWA. Wild Dog will be... Yeah, Wild Dog... Yeah. We had an incident in the last turn as well. We'll pick up on that in a moment. Statistic comes home in 4th place. Scouse Cookie in 5th, but he's got a time penalty, I think. No, he doesn't. Scott doesn't have either, so he finishes 6th. Melios will drop behind Rune and Nivi with the time penalties applied. So Nivi is 7th, Rune 8th, Melios 9th. Vintage will be in 10th place, and Podge, whose car is being controlled by the AI, will be 11th. Dixon will feel he's done an excellent job tonight with his racecraft. And the gap was 6 seconds on the road when he crossed the line. But with Novaves's time penalty, it was then added to make it 15 seconds. So I'm sure Dixon will be thinking about the likes of Novaves, who could be challenging for the championship this season coming up. We're probably going to be seeing this dance move of Dixon on a more regular basis, I'd imagine, every time he does win a race. But every point counts when it comes to racing in F2. And if Dixon can show the pace, as he has done throughout tonight, he's going to be very, very hard to beat this season. So let's have a look at the sprint race results here at Monza. Dixon is the winner again, Novaves second, with Wild Dog 3rd, Statistic King 4th, Scouse Cookie in 5th ahead of Scott, Nivi 7th, Rune 8th, Melios dropping to 9th with that time penalty. Vintage and Podge were the last of the finishers. Lucky Boff was the only driver that did not make it to the end of the race. Rosie, we've learned a lot. Well, we've learned enough anyway from tonight's race here at Monza. What can we expect from next week onwards when the championship does get underway? And I can't wait for the championship to begin for real next week as well. I'm sure you are, Rosie, when the championship does get underway in Spain next week. 8:30 p.m. British Summer Time, Wednesday, the 30th of June, where we hope to have a full 20-car grid for the two races in 7 days' time. I'm Tom Cairns, she's Rosie, and we'll speak again soon when the Formula Racing League returns.